What is your shameless, damn, I'm cheap AF habit or tendency? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. I bring home shampoo, conditioner, body wash, just soap, etc., etc., etc. from work. The company I work for makes it for high-end hotels, spas, stores, etc. We get all the bad, labels, codes, extras. Haven't had to buy for years. Give to all my friends too. Plus, give the sample size stuff to shelters and outreaches. Story 2. I want an air fryer. There's a life insurance company that will give you a $100 Amazon voucher after 3 months of having a policy with them. So I have extremely low value coverage that costs me $5 a month, and in 3 months' time, I'll be able to buy a nice air fryer, only having spent $15, and cancel the policy. If I die before then, my loved ones get $10K. Win-win. If you look around, there's always something like this to take advantage of. It just takes a bit of effort. Story 3. If it's yellow, let it mellow. We live in town and our water bill is insane. I'm also pregnant and peeing every 30 minutes, sometimes even more, so it doesn't make sense to flush every time. When we warm the water to take showers, I fill a pitcher of water until it gets hot. I save it to water my many plants or refill the pets' water bowls. So far, it's worked out pretty well. I don't know if we've saved any money, but it makes me feel better knowing that I'm trying to cut down on water use. Story 4. I almost always get the cheap, cheer bargain version of something. If it doesn't work out, then I have to buy it again, but this time the good version. Here's the thing though, the 90% of the time I win easily makes up for the 10% of the time I lose. Story 5. When I wash my hands like right before a meal, I tend to use a paper towel to try them off. And then I use that same, now damp, paper towel during my meal. I feel like it's a waste to throw away a presumably clean paper towel that was only used once to wipe off freshly cleaned hands. If I'm not eating a meal soon, I will use it to wipe down a mess I made earlier in the sink, on the counter or floor, etc. Story 6. When clicking on something on Amazon that I'm interested in, I check all the options on that page to see if any of the colors, etc. are cheaper. Many times there's one or two getting discontinued or something and is being sold for half or a third the price of the others. As long as it isn't absolutely hideous compared to what I'd really like to buy, I'll get it instead. Story 7. I own and operate a very successful home-based business and work from home. I make sandwiches for my lunches, 10 at a time, and freeze them. I put them in Ziploc sandwiches bags, actually generic brand sandwich bags, less than half the price of brand name. The bags come in a box of 300 for about 7 or 2.3 cents a bag. When I take a sandwich out of a freezer bag, I simply can't throw it away. I rinse it out and let it dry, and collect the 10 bags over the course of 2 work weeks. When I make another round of sandwiches, I reuse the bags. My wife shakes her head and rolls her eyes at me, considering our annual income is in the generous 6-digit range, and here I am reusing sandwich bags that literally cost pennies each. Story 8. I still go shopping at secondhand clothing stores, used hiking boots, equipment, old expired canned goods, etc., and I'm way past the time in my life when I need to do that. I'm basically always ready for the next depression, and Think On is right around the corner. Fingers crossed. Story 9. I stopped tipping for food, drink, except sit-down restaurants, where the worker didn't really do anything noteworthy other than facilitate a business transaction. Between the coffees, the pizzas, the beers, or the breweries, I'm getting taken to the cleaners by all of this tipping. I understand it's how they make their money, but with the core cost of food, drink nowadays, it's already hard for me to save money. Story 10. I am a dumpster diver. Saves me a lot of money, provides things I would never buy but could use, and gives me a treasure-finding dopamine hit. Edit. Both my cheap work boots soles have come off, but only the front of the shoes. So I use black duct tape around them to make them usable again. I dumpster dive at night. No one will see them. I am not about to buy new shoes for dumpster diving that will eventually fall apart. Story 11. Refilling my salt and pepper shakers at home with collected to-go ones from places like McDonald's. Whenever I know someone is making a run, I ask them to pick me up a few. Same thing for paper plates whenever a group orders pizza. Story 12. I have a tendency to question any expenditure over about $20 unless it's non-discretionary spending. I also overanalyze those expenditures because I want the best of anything. I expect these things to be almost perfect when I buy them, and they're usually not. This leads me to regret buying it and leads me to buy even less in the future. Strangely, vacations are the one thing I spend money on without a care in the world, and I've never regretted it. Story 13. I steal TP and paper towels from work. My rent is more than half. My bring home pay $2,300 a month for a studio apt in gangland here in Silicon Valley. I feel bad for doing it because my employer is a great guy, but every bit helps. Also, hand soap and cleaning supplies once in a great while too. Story 14. I'm literally the opposite. My girlfriend's friends tease her about me using Kerrygold Irish butter or this fancy Michigan peanut butter she gets me. It's not like the flecks in my garage epoxy or pearl dust or gold, but I do buy the good, my favorite version of what it is I need if it's available. If the generic version of something at the grocery store is better, I'll buy that without a second thought. But if it's not as good or better, you can keep it. FL Publix, people feel me on those Pop-Tarts. I bought them for my nieces and now I have my sister mail me a few boxes a year. Story 15. My 8-year-old and I save hundreds of dollars per year by just carrying drinks with us in an insulated lunchbox when we leave the house. It's also nice to be able to share sealed juice boxes with families at the park or pool. When I was less organized and kiddo was young, we often had strangers hand us a juice box and save the day. I love paying those small acts of kindness forward. Story 16. My mom made a point after our dad passed to take my brother and I to restaurants that she could afford so we could learn manners and how to act in public. My brother and I would secretly pack her purse with the soda crackers on the table. She got compliments from others on our good behavior and a purse full of crackers. Story 17. I buy the $15 Walmart shoes, and I can usually stretch them a year. I don't see the point in paying an assload for something I'm just going to end up tearing up. I also have the ability to get appliances at a much cheaper rate than the general public with my employee discount, but I just use old haul-off appliances from customers if they still work. I'm also really anal about food waste. I measure all my food out to exact portion sizes to eliminate waste as much as I possibly can. Story 18. I buy a lot of things secondhand on Marketplace or Kijiji. Sometimes it isn't even used, just the person bought more than they needed. I bought tires, tools, building supplies, car parts, and saved thousands of dollars. A couple of weeks ago, I bought brand new flooring for about 40% of what it cost in the store, and now I will have new flooring in my kitchen and bathrooms. Also bought a timing belt set for my car for about 30% of new retail because someone bought it for their car and then had an accident before they installed it. I check the ads frequently, and if it's something I need, I have cash ready to buy. Story 19. I buy towels on a discount, usually less than $10 each. I use them for several years. Then they become dog towels for doggy bath time for several years. Then they become shop rags. I keep towels for 10 plus years. Shop and change your auto, home insurance every year. It's a huge pain in the ass, but you can save so much. I also tend to eat those 0 diet 39 bags of ramen noodles for lunch at work, while I make over 6 figures. This is equally about being cheap AF as it is about finding cheap ramen delicious. Frugal tip. Check all of credit cards or services for perks. We get free Netflix and Peacock due to other services we use. Story 20. I don't consider myself cheap, but I try not to be wasteful in both what I buy and with my money. But I would love to get group of outside perspectives on, let's say I'm a normal week. I know I have habits and rules that I'm not even fully aware of, just my general lifestyle, and then see what other people think of it. What things do some people think I'm crazy for not spending a little money, and what do think I'm crazy for spending money on? Story 21. Shamelessly utilizing big box stores' return policies. I only need to print guess who are. I'll buy a printer with my credit card, print what I need, and return it. Last year, the rental we moved into needed a heavy-duty vacuum to get back to a base level of clean. Same thing as the printer. I'll do this with power tools for a one-off project. Anything that's eligible that I don't see using regularly beyond the 30-day mark. Millennial rental is what I call it. They want to jack up the price on goods and turn everything into a subscription? I'll do it right back to them. Story 22. I reuse Ziploc bags. I've reused plastic wrap. I haven't bought paper towels since I moved into my apartment 2 years ago. I have 2 rolls that I keep in a cabinet, and I never reach for them. They are there for emergencies, but the emergencies are mostly wiping up cooking oil that spills over the lip of the container LOL. I've actually grown to prefer the cheap single-ply toilet paper over the fluffy, expensive stuff. I actually decided to treat myself to the nice stuff the last time I restocked, and I regret it. Story 23. Haven't bought gift wrapping paper in years. I'll usually cut up brown paper grocery bags and draw a simple motif on the reverse side, except right after I moved house and had some leftover butcher's paper from wrapping my glassware, so use that instead. Cheap AF, but people seem to actually love the handmade vibe, and it's fun to do. Story 24. I laughed at a Reader's Digest story that I read when I was young about a high school student who brought friends home after school and found her dad had hung wet paper towels all over the kitchen to dry so that he could use them again. So embarrassing. I'm old now. If I clean up water with a paper towel, it's going to be hung up to dry. Story 25. Whenever I do my online grocery order on either Sainsbury's or Tesco, the bulk of the stuff I buy is mostly stuff from Nectar or Club Card offers. I'm quite reluctant to buy things at full price. Normally, I buy a crap load of a certain item, egg halloumi cheese, when it's on Nectar, Club Card offer, but when it's not, I don't buy it. I always think, why pay full price when you can find something cheaper? Mind you, I live alone, so it's easy just to sort myself out. Also, on the rare occasion I do go into a supermarket, mostly just as a supplement, I always like to pop in sometimes just before closing time just to see what is on clearance, no matter what supermarket it is, whether it be an M&S or an Aldi or Lidl. I'm getting bloody cheap. Story 26, always checking near the dumpster of our apartment complex, because oftentimes when people are moving out or they just have larger objects that they don't want to throw into the compactor, they will leave them out there in the sort of enclosure next to the dumpster. And a lot of people will throw away surprisingly good things. This year alone, I've recovered 4 working TVs, 2 of which were smart TVs, like 3 original Xboxes, an Xbox One S, an original-style Xbox 360 that isn't red-ringed, and a couple of other random bits of furniture and knickknacks and tools and stuff, as well as an entire desktop PC and a Dell PowerEdge server. Also got like a nearly new Shark Roomba-style vacuum. And literally all it needed was a fresh battery, and the thing ran great. I probably gotten a few $1,000s worth of stuff for free by just claiming and occasionally restoring things people threw out. As a kid, I was embarrassed by the idea of essentially dumpster diving, but as an adult, it's absolutely thrilling and always fun to see what I might find next. Story 27, first dates. I meet up with her for coffee or maybe one alcoholic drink in a bar, arrive separately and depart separately. And this has been a source of disagreement between me and several dates. I prefer going to a nice restaurant where we can relax and emotionally engage. I don't know in DGAF what emotionally engage means, but I'm starting to wish that whoever taught millennials and Gen Z all this therapy lingo would be arrested for crimes against humanity. I also DGAF what Her Royal Highness prefers. Unless she's volunteering to pay for the nice restaurant, and we know she isn't, then I can decide where we go and she can STF. Why? Because far too many women use dating apps for foodie calls. So I use cheap coffee dates as a way to filter out the users and losers. Thus, I am shameless about it. The girls who genuinely want to get to spend time with me seem to have no problem emotionally engaging with me in a St. Arbuck's store. Story 28. Keeping my wardrobe 80% from the thrift store or hand-me-downs or secondhand, 20% is bought from the store like underwear, shoes, socks, and intimate clothes. Always checking the clearance section in a grocery store. Sometimes they have really good stuff. Buying my groceries from grocery outlet or well-priced grocery stores like Winco. Looking on Craigslist for free stuff, such as furniture, and making sure that they are good quality. Story 29. We have a large local bakery with outlet stores that contain a mix of new bread and other groceries, and a back wall of $2 bread that's mostly returns from grocery stores. On the first Saturday of the month, that bread is $1 and I grab it. Got 18 hamburger buns for $1 once, the day I was hosting a barbecue. Story 30. When coupons are limited to a certain amount per person, I use relatives to buy more. Sometimes I'll ask for sugar packets and spoons at the cafe next to my job instead of buying them. Also, you can't really do this anymore, but I used to check the coin return on payphones to see if anyone left change. I still do pick up change on the ground unless it's really dirty. Story 31. If I can make something or build it myself instead of buying one, I will. Example, I built a deck on my house from wood salvaged from abandoned houses and mines. I built a carport out of logs because a cord of wood is only $2 plus gas and time. I built my mother a chicken coop entirely out of salvaged wood. Story 32. I always check out the reduced section in the supermarket. Once spent $8.05 on perfectly freezable items, which equated to 2 months worth of meals in the freezer, which about 3 bags of shopping. Guess I timed it right. If I'm shopping for furniture, say I always go to the furniture second section. Excellent savings to be had, specifically my local store for the home based in Otley. If I want to get rid of something, i.e. an old chest of drawers most recently, I list on the free Facebook sites. This way, I save $80 for someone to come and remove it, and the item is gone. I scope out eBay a lot and the charity shops on there. I have used paper plates for packing plates whilst moving, Bin bags are excellent uses of storing clothes. They make excellent vacuum bags. I wait for things to come up on free sites like Facebook, because why pay for something if someone's giving it away? Most recently, I acquired a huge luggage bag on wheels barely used, some unused free clothes, and a shoe rack and new curtains. Story 33. I also use my Octopus Energy account and get a free pot of tea at Greg's. And they've even included peppermint tea in their freebie section, so yay. I also saved my Octo points to spend in their merchandise shop and got my sister a dog toy off it. Coincidentally, he loved it, and my sister never found out it was free. Story 34. I'm not as cheap frugal as I used to be, but my fiance and I try to freeze every bit of food we can to make it last, especially bread. The cheap bread isn't worth the money anymore, so we go to the local Italian bakery to get the good stuff and freeze it. Meal prepping saved me a ton of time and money as a long-distance commuter. I'm hoping I can cancel my gym membership, BC. I've been consistent with working out at home. I highly recommend the MadFit channel if you live in an apartment. My fiance got rid of his car when he started WFH in 2020, and he loves not having a car anymore, but does help me out with car expenses, BC. We share my car now. Story 35. When I was at university, we stole toilet paper from other student houses or from the university itself, because paper was very expensive. It was so bad that there came a time when everyone bought their own toilet paper and kept it in their room so they could have control. Story 36. If my food comes in a bag, i.e. chips, tortillas, cereal, etc., or a box, I save them and use them as trash bags for wet foods like avocado peels, eggshells, banana peels, wet paper towels. Then I can throw them out so they don't stink up my kitchen and I don't waste a whole bag. I also use empty protein powder containers as a bathroom trash can. Every time I empty one, I throw the old one out. Story 37. I do not like to go anywhere unless it is 50% off or 2 for 1. I go to several stores just to buy the sales that week. Too bad many shops no longer do 50% off. It is now mostly 30% only, so I am more picky now. Buy 2, get 1 is just not the same as buy 1, get 1. Story 38. Before I go grocery shopping, I go on Instacart first and plug in every item from my list one at a time to see which store has the cheapest item. Usually I have to hit up 3-4 stores in one trip to make sure I get the best possible deals and don't miss the sales. It's a bit excessive, but I enjoy the ritual. Story 39. I have a lot. Got a few extra sauce packages from someplace. I'm keeping them. See something thrown into a dumpster that's accessible to the public and doesn't have a no trespassing sign or locks? I'm dumpster diving. See a coin on the ground? Better believe I'm picking it up. I generally look down just to scan for coins. I reuse Ziploc bags. I'll clean my sponges until they're literally falling apart. I'll deal with getting weird looks for using both physical coupons and website coupons on the same items. I could honestly go on. And you've just now made me realize how freaking cheap I am. Like, geez, only luxuries I spend my money on are vaping and alcohol. Story 40. I walk everywhere. Most of all because I just don't want my husband to pay for Ubers or public transportation. And I'm not always in the mood for biking, so I walk. Also, when it's an hour to get there and an hour back. Our daughter is not amused on the days I decide to take her in her stroller to my job, me, her daycare. Story 41. 2. Use checks and stamps to mail in my rent check because they charge a $2 fee to pay through their website. The bastages. Saves me $125 a month. Note, the checks and envelopes I got for free, the stamps I used to get for free, and had a stockpile but have used them up over the years. I would check the waste paper baskets at the job I had for uncanceled stamps that made it through the postal service or on letters customers hand-delivered. They were country club people who would not bother removing the stamps from the envelope. I ran out of my stockpile and now have to buy stamps. Story 42. I fixed the holes in my socks by hand sewing. Each sock costs literally like 0.5 cent USD, but I prefer to spend 15 minutes sewing the holes instead of throwing it away. It's kind of relaxing. I'm a software developer and earn around $100 per hour, so I literally may be wasting money by doing that, but it's something my mom taught me to do. And after I finish sewing one sock, I get a sense of pride with the result, LOL. I'm a dude, foo. Story 43. If an item breaks before I believe it should have, I buy a new one and return the old one with a fresh receipt. I had a decade of Bluetooth Motorola's because of this. Video game controllers, too. I'll engage capitalism in good faith when capitalism engages humanity in good faith. Story 44. As someone with really long hair, I go through a lot of conditioner. The only kind I use is really expensive. At the supermarket or Target, etc., it's usually $30–40 for a small bottle. However, Costco sells bundles of the specific brand for $29.99. You get a big jug of conditioner, about twice the size, and also a jug of shampoo. So I wait for the bundles to go on sale for $19.99 and then buy the bundle. It's about half as expensive overall, but I have like 4 gallons of shampoo I'll never use now, LOL, since I don't go through it nearly as fast as conditioner. Story 45. This is great recycling. Almost everything I have is recycled. Underwear and socks are exceptions. And why pay $20 when you can get it for $2? I have a red KitchenAid portable mixer, which was just out of the box that I picked up at Goodwill for $1.99. Reg prices between $50-$60. I pounced on that real quick. Story 46. Am not an actual dad, but I am a dad with the thermostat. How long can we last before we turn on the heat or AC? Does the upstairs really need to be set to that temp when we're not up there all day? We have 3 different zones, and each has its own nest with the perfect schedule. Story 47. Ground scores. My dad has gotten everything from new Converse shoes to $1,500 tools. He stopped after COVID, but man, the pocket knives alone he's found over the years would be a fortune. I can't help but still check shiny things in the gutter. Also jiggling the gas pump nozzle for those few extra cents. Story 48. When I need to buy something, I have a process before I actually spend money to buy it. It goes as so. 1. Ask in my local Buy Nothing group on Facebook if anyone is willing to part with whatever thing I need. 2. Ask my sister, or just take it from her house if I know she has it. I give it back, sometimes LOL. 3. Check the thrift store Naj Facebook Marketplace, on eBay if 1 to 2 don't work. 4. Buy if it's something I genuinely need, have a need, plan for. I hate the consumption culture we live in, so I'm happy to take a few extra steps to keep something out of the landfill. Story 49. I save potato chip bags to use as small trash can liners. I hate that they're so bad for the environment, but I love chips, so might as well get a reuse out of them. I make my own brow eyelash oil. Dollar Tree shampoo is my new fave. Groceries are at Grocery Outlet and Aldi. Ordering cocktails that aren't on the promoted menu is almost always cheaper. Wearing UPF clothes that I got at a thrift store instead of using up sunscreen on my arms. At the coffee shop in my work building, there's an upcharge for oat milk, so I keep my own in the work fridge and add it to black coffee or Americanos. Story 50. I cut my own hair, but only because it looks so much better than when I'd pay $80 for a pixie trim. Secretly, I absolutely love when I get compliments on it, and I blush and say, why thank you? I cut it myself, and so your compliment is really appreciated. Story 51. Bring your own food. The last time I went to the movies, I brought a dozen tamales. My brother brought candy from the Dollar Tree, and my sister brought booze in a water bottle. Went for matinee. Buy 1 soda to make it look legit. Those kids don't care for $15 an hour. Story 52. I paid off a 2017 Subaru Forester last year. Our other car is bigger and fits the whole family. Wanted to drive the Forester until it died, but then learned I could trade it for a 2020 Kia Niro EV and profit $3,000 after federal and state incentives. Have no regrets about the trade, but it costs $70 more a month to insure, and since the trade gas went down and electric went up, but there are some free chargers I know about. Story 53. I try not to go out very often for coffee anymore, both for frugality's sake and to reduce plastic waste. But when I do get a plastic iced coffee cup, I will save it and reuse it for homemade iced coffee, so I feel bougie whenever I go out in public with it. Story 54. I can spend hours spread across multiple days researching and contemplating the best value for money model of a not even expensive item I want or need. It will not rarely end up a worse decision than if I had just bought the Amazon bestseller and got it over with because I end up overthinking it. I smuggle snacks and drinks into the cinema. For months, I'm just about to pull the trigger on a Sonicare electric toothbrush. I know I shouldn't cheap out on dental health, but god damn, it's hard to justify the price tag, not even the most expensive one, just mid-range, when a normal hand toothbrush is $1 for a pack of 3. Story 55. I hate how much shampoo and conditioner are left in the bottle when it no longer pumps. I turn the bottles upside down in a glass to get every damn drop. Also lotion, I've cut the bottom off, squeezed tubes, and then folded it over and sealed it with a binder clip. Need lotion? Just scoop some out of the cutoff end. Companies promoting that much waste. Story 56. I won't spend more than $8 on guacamole, and that's only if it comes with at least one other type of salsa, hot sauce, and chips. I live in Arizona, Phoenix area. There are excellent, authentic Mexican restaurants literally everywhere you turn. None of them charge over $8 for guacamole. On principle, I will never, ever pay more than that. I'll just go to Elmer's the next day and get $4 guacamole. That's better than any fancy restaurant guacamole you could ever imagine. Story 57, sauce and seasoning packets of all kinds. Ketchup, mustard, soy sauce, duck sauce, taco sauce, Parmesan cheese, red pepper flake, salt, pepper, butter packets, BBQ sauce, etc., etc. We'll literally ask for the cheese and red pepper at a pizza place with intent of tossing it in some pasta with some butter for a quick comfort meal one night. Story 58, houses. The pricing is always set up to not only take all your current income, they want a chunk of your future income. I'm convinced people buy houses based on, well, we need a house and this is all there is, so I guess I get 2 extra jobs and eat beans for 6 years. I've never had a nice house, which kind of sucks that I have to remodel all the time, but I absolutely refuse to be a slave to property. Especially if it can burn down and insurance companies saying, sorry, we just don't give you enough. Last 2 places I got for $50K. Needed a chunk of work and still have work to do, but if I lose my job, I can still pay my bills washing dishes or some. Story 59. Not only do I only shop the clearance section, but in clothing stores, it's clearance section plus coupon, or I'm not buying it. Example, $20 shirt 80% off, 80% off $4 plus 20% coupon, 4 to 20% or 3.20, $3.20. So a $20 shirt for $3.20. When my kids were little, I'd buy their clothes and many toys at consignment sales and reconsign them the following year. The rare times I brought them clothes in the stores, it was end-of-year clearance. I brought one of every color available, sized up. Yes, I purchased meat from the discount meat area. I can't think of any others right now. Story 60. One that I do that I haven't seen mentioned yet is never throwing away cords or cables of any kind. I know I'll probably never need them, but I'll be damned if I'm going to spend another $20 for some cord that I had years ago and toss for whatever reason. I've accumulated a good collection over the years, but they all still fit in one box. I probably have some that I've had since I was a teenager that are 100% obsolete by now. Story 61, I work hybrid. When I do need to go in, it's not by a specific time per se. Essentially, I go in whenever that is appropriate to get my work done. It could be 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. for 1-2 hour. So when I plan to go in office on whichever day, I refuse to make coffee at home with all my fancy syrup and creamer. I insist on drinking free coffee at work with powder creamer. So I could literally go without coffee for half the day, go in and get coffee at like 2 p.m. Story 62, office job. I refuse to buy office supplies for home Lowell. I just take from work. I'm talking like a few sticky notes, notepads, and a few pens, paper. Nothing crazy. I work from home sometimes anyway, so technically one could say it's for work. I also go to conferences on behalf of my work and take all the goodies. All my pens at home are from work or conferences I go to. Story 63, I'll use a phone until it either becomes too obsolete to run anything anymore or it breaks. I had to do both in 2022, replaced a phone that could no longer support apps, and then had to replace the replacement when it got crushed 3 months later. I'm not doing it again until I absolutely have to. Story 64, I worked at a car wash with free vacuums for a few years. We absolutely picked through the trash and took anything worth taking. It's the only aspect of that job I miss. I still have some of the stuff I found. I would save any book, CD, or DVD I found and let it build up in my trunk before I took it to half-price books. Got like $75 in store credit once. The best find was a $130 North Face jacket in my size with $130 cash in the pocket. Found that one right around Christmas time too. Story 65, my grocery store started using compostable bags instead of those flimsy plastic produce bags. Now I take one every week to use in my compost bin. When I start to maybe feel bad about it, I remember that I actually did buy produce, so it's legit to take one, even though I don't normally take the plastic ones. Story 66. Whenever I go to any restaurant with my friends, I always eat up whatever is left on serving plate. If you are in a group, there's a slight chance that there is still a piece of vegetable lying on that plate. I wait in case anyone wants to eat it. But when it's time for bill, I just pick up my spoon and clean out that serving bowls and plates. I don't care whatever is left on their plates, but the food is perfectly fine. Why should it go to waste? I have seen people giving me looks, but damn, the looks have never bothered me as much as that big piece of leftover capsicum and chili potato plate does. Story 67. I never pre-order or buy video games on release. To be fair, the games industry has an absolutely terrible track record with releases. You're paying the highest price of a product at its worst version. As a patient gamer, I instead get to enjoy the lowest price of a product at its best. aka fully patched version. Honestly, anyone not patient gaming is just ripping themselves off. The only excuse is games with public online multiplayer, but even those you can easily wait a day or two to see actual factual release reviews rather than hype and cope. Story 68. Going to fast food places, like Burger King, for a soda or a small fry, just to get the receipt. When you do the survey on the back, you get a code at the end which gives you a Whopper with the purchase of fries and a drink. I was banned from a few stores in my town because of it. LNMAO. Story 69. I don't know if this really counts, but I refuse to have anything delivered. I'll just go pick it up myself. And tips are exclusively for good servers at restaurants everyone else can off. Story 70. I used to know a billionaire, Arab dude from Qatar who obviously lives off daddy's money. Guy literally had everything, from apartment towers to malls and restaurants and Ferraris and Lambos and all the rest. Dude paid me minimum wage, as little as he legally could. And then, I'll never forget, before I knew how rich he was, we were discussing shoes for staff for the kitchen. He chose the cheap Chinese plastic shoes. Then he decided not everyone gets a pair. They'll get half the amount of shoes so that the late shift, early shift can swap shoes, and he'll only have to buy half the shoes. For a man with hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars arguing over fucking $300-something, dude. What a dipshit. Story 71. Every billionaire sports team owner who gets the taxpayers to buy him a new stadium. Currently, the most heinous example is John Fisher, owner of the Oakland A's, who is in a legal battle with the Nevada Teachers Union trying to get tax dollars to build a stadium so he can move the team to Vegas instead of spending that money on education. Story 72. This is interesting. I think of healthcare executives who embezzled COVID funds and haven't paid living wages to the lowest paid employees. I also have been accused of being greedy by family members when they have terrible financial habits, and they want me to co-sign a new car loan. Story 73. Medical insurance companies that get a majority of their revenue through government subsidies then turn around and charge people an exorbitant amount of money, oftentimes an entire life savings worth, while still denying them medical care in the end. Story 74. McDonald's made $14 billion in profit for this year, and still raising prices to cover wage raises is the epitome of greed. They employ a huge portion of the fast food market in the U.S., making them responsible for a huge portion of the poverty in the U.S. Story 75. Oprah in Rock doing a video so people would donate to a relief fund for Maui. She and her billionaire friends that live on Maui could personally pay to repair the damage on the island and still have billions left. They could at least use their government influence so residents would get more than $900 or whatever the pitiful amount was. Story 76. The Mormon Church. They're sitting on a dragon hoard of over $150 billion in stocks, on top of all the real estate they own, and the amount just grows. They barely spend a fraction of their money on charitable causes, and could easily run the church off their investment income. And yet they still mandate that their followers around the world pay 10% of their earnings, claiming that Jesus wants them to. They even got caught by the SEC recently lying about their investments and using shell companies to hide how much they own. The widow's mite just gets chucked onto a vast pile of money, serving no purpose other than to make Jesus' dollar number go up. Story 77. Spy magazine in the early 1990s sent 1.11 checks to 58 of New York's wealthiest individuals with the explanation from their fake clearinghouse that it was a refund of money overpaid. 26 of those individuals cashed the checks. Spy followed up with those 26 with another check for 0.64. 13 of the 26 recipients cashed the check. Finally, Spy sent those 13 people a check for 0.3. Only 2 people cashed them. Donald Trump was one of them. Story 78. My friend's parents started a restaurant empire and are worth probably close to $80 million. My friend sadly passed away earlier this year, right after he and his fiancée bought a house together. His parents had signed on the mortgage with him and his fiancée, and when he passed away, they told her that she needs to find a way to keep paying the mortgage, or they were selling the house. She didn't make enough to keep paying the mortgage by herself, so they ended up just selling it. They could have easily just paid the whole thing off for the poor girl after she just lost her fiancé, but they didn't. It would have been a drop in the hat for them, but now instead his widowed fiancé is scraping by in a 1-bedroom apartment. Absolutely baffling to me how people with lots of money operate like that. Story 79. Anybody who owns more than 50 millions or so, that's literally enough to live a very comfortable life without having to work ever again. Anybody who keeps going after that is sick. Hell, if I had 10 millions, I'd stop right there. No more work, ever. You can argue on the precise number where it crosses the line into greed, But at some point, further accumulation of wealth becomes useless. What are you going to do with $1 billion that you couldn't do with 900 millions? Story 80. A billionaire once personally declined my expense report. I bought training materials, food and coffee for a 4-day training event that I was coordinating and running for his company. I used my personal card and submitted receipts. Declined. He then went on to cancel the insurance endorsement for employee private property. Several employees dealt with theft, vandalism, and tragedies that normally would have been covered, but were left high and dry. Story 81, the owners of Trader Joe's. Private company, yet they still try to squeeze out as much profit from their core products as possible. They marginally reduce the portion sizes every few years and slowly replace the meat with lower quality, fattier, more breaded pieces. Really started to noticing this over the past decade with some of their frozen staples like orange and teriyaki chicken, for example. At the end of the day, they are a branded CPG company, not a grocer.